Hey everyone, and welcome back to Creepy Pumpkin Tales, the channel where we unravel the spookiest stories, one pumpkin at a time. I'm your host, and tonight I've got a bone-chilling tale for you. So get comfortable, turn down the lights, and let your imagination run wild. My name is Jake, and for 5 long years, I was an ambulance driver. You see things in that job. You see things that change you. After a while, you think you've become numb to it all. The cries, the blood, the silence of the dead. You think your heart has turned to stone. But one night, one single terrifying night, showed me how wrong I was. It shattered my reality and made me question everything I thought I knew. It was so bad, I quit night shifts for good after that. It was a hazy evening. The last light of day was fading, and a strange quiet had settled over the city. I was parked outside the hospital, sitting in the driver's seat of my rig. It had been a slow day. I was even starting to doze off. I'm not sure what time it was exactly, maybe around 7 or 7:30 p.m. I pulled out my phone to check, and that's when it lit up with a call from an unknown number. I answered. A grim, familiar voice spoke. "Jake, it's Dr. Harris. Get to my office, now." I knew Dr. Harris. He was a senior physician. I didn't waste a second. I locked the ambulance and hurried inside to his office. He met me just outside his door. He looked exhausted, beads of sweat on his forehead. He spoke in a low voice. "Jake, I have a critical task. You need to transport a body, right now." I was a little surprised. Usually families handle body transfers, and a family member rides along. But from the tone of his voice, I knew this was serious. I didn't ask questions. "Where to, Doc?" Dr. Harris put a hand on my shoulder. "Look, a man died of a heart attack a few hours ago. The autopsy's done, but the family, they're poor, can't afford to come to the hospital. You have to take the body to them. They're acquaintances of mine. You won't have any trouble. I'll take full responsibility. The paperwork is all ready. You just have to drive." He handed me a stack of papers and a slip with an address scribbled on it. I read it. The place was far, a good 3-hour drive. Driving that distance alone at night was daunting enough, but doing it with a body in the back. My partner wasn't with me that day. He'd left with another rig for an emergency. So it was just me and the body. I headed straight for the morgue. After showing the paperwork, I pulled the ambulance up to the gate. 2 ward boys came out immediately, placed the body on a stretcher, and loaded it into the back. It was the body of a middle-aged man, maybe in his early 40s. His face was pale and rigid. They locked the stretcher in place and draped a white sheet over him. Once they were done, I closed the rear doors, got into the driver's seat, said a quick prayer, and started the engine. Before pulling out, I took a quick look around. The hospital yard was slowly emptying out. The silence of the night was growing, and a strange unease settled in my gut. It was a feeling I'd never had before, a premonition almost, like this wasn't going to be an ordinary night. I set off. The road was long. After navigating the city traffic, I hit the highway and picked up speed. Darkness stretched out on all sides. Nothing but trees lined the road, with the occasional glimpse of a closed-up shop. About half an hour passed. Everything was fine. I turned on the radio, letting the soft music fill the cabin. I even hummed along, trying to keep myself calm. The familiar smell of disinfectant and death filled the ambulance. It wasn't new to me, so it didn't bother me much. But then, something strange happened. My focus was entirely on the road ahead. I was doing about 50 miles an hour. The headlights cut a clear path through the darkness, and then suddenly I saw it. A man standing right in the middle of the highway. It was as if he had just materialized out of nowhere. He was positioned in such a way that there was no room to swerve around him. The moment I saw him, I slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched, shattering the night silence. My whole body jerked forward. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. In a panic, I squeezed my eyes shut, certain I had just run the man over. I sat there for a few seconds, frozen. When everything was quiet again, I tried to pull myself together. With trembling hands, I opened the driver's door. My entire body was shaking, consumed by fear. I was sure a horrible accident had just occurred. But when I stepped down and looked ahead, the hairs on my neck stood up. There was no one there. The road was completely empty. As far as the headlights reached, it was just barren asphalt. No man, not even a trace. Frantically, I looked all around the ambulance. I even bent down to look underneath. Nothing. My mind went numb. I had seen him clearly. His face, his figure were fresh in my mind. So where did he go? Did he just vanish? Or had I imagined it? But how could I make such a big mistake? I was fully alert, I knew I was. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd been sitting too long. Maybe fatigue had made me mistake a shadow, a trick of the light, for a person. Yeah, that had to be it. I got back into the driver's seat, pulled out a water bottle, and chugged half of it in one go. I wiped the sweat from my brow, took a deep breath, and tried to convince myself it was all in my head. But the fear had taken root in a corner of my heart. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning, or a taste of what was to come. I started the ambulance and moved forward. This time my eyes were glued to the road. I was the most vigilant driver in the world, but my ears were now tuned to the back of the ambulance, where the body of that middle-aged man lay. I picked up speed again, but a strange dread had settled in. I kept telling myself that what I'd seen was just my eyes playing tricks, but deep down, a part of me wasn't buying it, and my mind kept repeating one thing. What I saw wasn't a shadow, it was a man. I slowed down a little more, now paying attention to every little sound. I even turned off the radio so I wouldn't miss the faintest rustle or noise. The silence of the night felt heavier now. Beyond the headlights, I couldn't see a thing. It felt like the road ahead led into a world of pure darkness. The dense trees on either side stood like walls of shadow. Another 10, 15 minutes passed like this. I was trying to push the incident out of my mind. Just 2 more hours, I thought. I'll deliver the body, hand it over to the family, and get back. And then, suddenly, a loud noise came from the back. It sounded like something heavy had fallen to the floor. The sound was so sharp my heart leapt into my throat. My first thought was that the stretcher's lock had failed, and it had crashed down inside the ambulance. It can happen sometimes, with a jolt. But the sound was too heavy, too wrong. I didn't hesitate. I pulled the ambulance over to the side of the road. I kept the engine running and quickly got out. Sweat was beading on my forehead again. Fear and anxiety had me on edge. I looked around, then, with trembling hands, opened the rear doors. I looked inside, and my mind reeled. Everything was perfectly in place. The stretcher was locked securely. The body was still lying there, covered by the white sheet. Nothing had moved. I looked around in confusion. No disorder. So what was that sound? I'd heard it clearly. A heavy thud, and it came from right behind me. I bent down, checking the stretcher's wheels and the locking system. Everything was fine. A suspicion grew in my mind. Was my own mind playing tricks on me? Was this all my imagination? I slammed the rear door shut. It clicked, meaning it was locked properly. I started walking back towards the driver's seat. But just as I was about to get in, I heard another sound, like the rear door opening again. I spun around, and my blood ran cold. The door I had just closed was now wide open. Its panel was swaying slightly in the breeze. Now, fear had me in a complete stranglehold. This was no illusion. I could see the door moving with my own eyes, and I knew for a fact that door was heavy, and I had locked it myself. So how could it open on its own? I started taking slow steps back towards the rear. With every step, my heartbeat grew faster and louder. It felt like a hammer was pounding inside my skull. I reached the door and peered inside. The sight sent a cold shiver down my spine. The white sheet had slipped off and was lying on the ambulance floor. The corpse's yellowed, waxy face was now completely exposed. But how was that possible? When I'd closed the door the first time, the sheet was lying perfectly over the body. How could it have slipped off in just those few seconds? The ambulance was parked. It hadn't moved. There was no jolt. Trembling, I looked at the corpse's face, and my breath caught in my throat. In my 5-year career, I'd seen hundreds of corpses. Faces crushed in accidents, bodies bloated from water, terrifying faces burned in fires. But none had ever scared me to my core like this. There was something different about this face, something strange. His eyes were slightly open, but there was no spark of life in them. His lips were twisted, as if he was intensely angry about something. His jaw was so clenched, it looked like it might snap at any moment. His entire face was etched with deep hatred and rage. It was as if he would sit up at any moment and demand to know why this had happened to him. I had never seen such vivid anger on a dead man's face. In that moment, I knew. There's something wrong with this body. Something not normal. Something terrifying. I couldn't stand there for a second longer. My body was shaking. But I gathered my courage and stepped back into the ambulance. I picked up the sheet from the floor and with trembling hands, covered the corpse's face again. I didn't want to see that horrifying visage for a moment longer. The moment the sheet was in place, I almost ran back out and slammed the rear door shut. This time I didn't just close it. I grabbed the handle and shook it several times, making sure it wouldn't open easily. Then I went straight to the driver's seat and sat down. My throat was dry. My heart was pounding. I understood now. I had stumbled into something very, very bad. What was happening on this long, deserted road was neither a coincidence nor my imagination. I didn't look anywhere else. I just put my foot on the accelerator. The ambulance growled and moved forward. My only goal now was to get away from this place and deliver this body to its destination as soon as possible. But I didn't know the real terror was just beginning. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, staring ahead into the darkness. The sound of that heavy thud still echoed in my ears, and that angry, dead face kept flashing before my eyes. I can't describe in words the state I was in after seeing that face. My body was trembling, but my mind was racing. I knew stopping here was not an option. I had to keep moving as fast as I could. I almost doubled the ambulance's speed, and then I felt as if the darkness around me had come alive. It felt like someone was watching me from behind the trees on both sides of the road. I was gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers hurt. I had only one thought. The vehicle must not stop, no matter what. No matter what happens, I just have to keep moving. After about 10 and 15 minutes of continuous driving, I came to a turnoff. A road branched off to the right, leading towards a rural area. And then I remembered. This was the shortcut I'd been thinking about. If I took this route, I could easily save half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. The problem was, that road was completely deserted. Even during the day, hardly anyone used it. And at night, it was like the land of the dead. No houses, no shops, just miles of woods, and further out, empty fields. I hesitated for a moment, thinking, was it right to take that lonely road in this condition? or should I take the longer but more familiar route? My brain was telling me to stick to the old road. It was safer. But my heart was also afraid, thinking it would be better to get rid of this body as soon as possible. And in my greed to save time, I made a decision. I said a prayer, turned right, and steered the ambulance onto that dark, deserted road. The moment I entered, I felt like I'd stepped into another world. The paved road ended, and a rough, unpaved path began. Large trees leaned over on both sides, making it feel like I was driving through a dark tunnel. The moonlight couldn't penetrate the leaves. The only light was from my headlights, and that was my only support. Another 10, 15 minutes passed. I was driving slowly and carefully. The silence around was so profound that nothing could be heard except the engine's rumble. And then, that sound came again. This time it was different. From the back of the ambulance, where the body was, I started hearing a continuous thump, thump, thump sound, like someone was hitting the floor with an iron rod or something heavy. Hearing that sound, my heart sank. Fear spread through my whole body. I started sweating. There was only that corpse in the back. So who was making that sound? I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled the ambulance over to the side of the road. The engine was still running, and I leaned over, peering through the small window into the back of the ambulance. It was dim inside, but from what I could see, everything seemed fine. The body, wrapped in the white sheet, was lying perfectly still on the stretcher. There was no movement. So where was that sound coming from? I tried to listen carefully, but the moment I stopped the vehicle, the sound stopped. A deep silence fell again. A dry sound escaped my throat. My throat was getting dry. I didn't know what to do. This time I couldn't muster the courage to get out and go look in the back. Just then, that angry face flashed before my eyes again, and my whole body shuddered. I started driving again, but the fear in my heart hadn't lessened. I felt that what was happening to me was no ordinary thing. This was the work of some evil force. The moment I thought that, the fear grew even more. To steady myself, I tried one more thing. I always kept a bottle under my driver's seat. Cheap whiskey. On long trips, I'd sometimes take a sip to fight fatigue or clear my head. I know it's not right, but at that moment, I had no other option. I held the steering wheel with one hand and with the other, pulled the bottle out from under the seat. I quickly opened the cap and took 2-3 burning gulps. The sharp liquid fire going down my throat sent a jolt through my body. I thought maybe the fear would lessen a little. They say liquor gives you courage. Maybe now nothing would scare me. Whatever happens, I'll face it with courage. I focused on the road again. This route was very lonely. Since I'd turned onto it, I'd only seen one motorcycle pass by. No other cars, no people, and a strange silence was draped over everything, as if the very air had stopped moving. I was driving the ambulance when suddenly my gaze froze on the road ahead. What I saw in the headlights made my whole body go numb. I slammed on the brakes. Right in the middle of the road, about 50, 60 yards ahead of my ambulance, stood a body wrapped in a white shroud. Yes, it was a corpse, covered from head to toe in white cloth, standing right in the center as if someone had deliberately blocked my path. No people around, no cars. A corpse in the middle of a deserted dark road. The sight was so terrifying that the effect of the whiskey vanished in an instant. My mind went ice cold. I leaned over the steering wheel, taking heavy breaths. Now there were 2 corpses in front of my eyes. One inside the ambulance and one outside. And the one outside was standing right in the middle of my path. I realized I had fallen into a dangerous trap. There was no way out. Looking at that body wrapped in white cloth, I was completely stunned. A corpse in the middle of the road at midnight. I couldn't handle it. After joining this profession, I'd heard many stories from older drivers, tales full of terror, talk of strange and scary happenings on the roads at night. Back then, I'd just laughed them off. I thought the storyteller was crazy. But today, what was happening before my eyes had shattered all my beliefs. I shook my head, trying to come to my senses. I rubbed my eyes with both hands. My mind was stuck between truth and delusion. But no, every time I looked, the corpse was still there, and it was clearly visible in the headlights, wrapped in a white shroud, perfectly still and stable in the middle of the road. Now fear had taken complete control of my body. I could clearly feel that something very bad was about to happen there. This wasn't just a corpse. It was a trap, an illusion, or maybe a gang of robbers pretending to be a corpse, so I would stop and they could attack me. Then the same thought returned. No, this isn't the work of humans. There's something else behind this. Some darkness, some evil thing. Anything horrible could happen at any moment. And at that moment, the voice inside me started screaming, "Jake, run away from here. Run away now or you'll die." I was paralyzed with fear, but I also knew I had to keep a cool head. If I stopped here, I would die. I put the ambulance back in gear and floored the accelerator. The ambulance surged forward with a roar. Now only one thought was running through my mind. No matter what, I won't stop. I'll drive right over whatever is in front of me. If it's a human or some robber, he'll move out of fear on his own. And if he doesn't, then so be it. I don't care. The road wasn't very wide, and that corpse-like thing was right in the middle. It was impossible to avoid it. The ambulance's speed kept increasing. My eyes were fixed on that white cloth. My heart was beating so fast, I thought my ribs would break. As the vehicle got closer, the body didn't move an inch. A cold wave ran down my spine. I closed my eyes. And the next moment, a heavy thump sound came from under the tires, the sound of something being crushed. My whole body shuddered, and at that exact moment, a blood-curdling scream echoed in my ears. The scream was so loud and terrifying, I thought my eardrums would burst. But the most horrifying thing was this. The scream didn't come from outside the ambulance. It came from inside, from behind me, from where the body of that middle-aged man was lying. It felt as if I had driven over a living person, and his pain-filled scream was echoing inside my ambulance. My brain seemed to stop working. My hands and feet were now shaking violently, but I still didn't take my foot off the accelerator. I knew if I stopped, I probably wouldn't survive. I started driving, looking only ahead, without glancing around. I didn't stop the ambulance for a single moment. Now I felt as if I was driving through hell. After going a little distance, I tried to look in the side mirror. I tried to see the scene behind me, but the headlights weren't reaching that far. As far as the eye could see, there was only deep black darkness. There was no sign of that body wrapped in white cloth. It was as if the darkness had swallowed the road behind. My whole body was drenched in sweat. I was taking big gasps, and that terrible scream was still ringing in my ears. Only one thought was running through my mind. No matter what, I have to get past this road. I have to reach populated areas. I increased the ambulance's speed even more, and it bounced along that broken, ruined road. But I didn't care about that. My eyes were only on the dark road ahead, and my attention kept going back to that cold, quiet place behind me, where that terrible corpse was with me. I don't know why, but my mind was saying this night wasn't over yet. Every breath I took was filled with fear and terror, and at that time I was just doing one thing, pushing the accelerator to the floor, moving the ambulance forward. I was probably only 35 minutes away from my destination now. This shortcut route was almost over, And a little further ahead, I'd probably merge onto the main road, and this cursed path would end. Thinking this gave me a little courage. But I was wrong. The most terrifying and hair-raising event of the night was still to come. Thinking this gave me a little courage. But I was wrong. The most terrifying and hair-raising event of the night was still to come. I was driving, giving myself this false sense of comfort, when suddenly a loud noise started coming from the roof of the ambulance. It was a sound like something, or somethings, were jumping up and down on it. A heavy thump, thump, thump. The whole ambulance was shaking from the force of it. I thought the roof was going to cave in on my head. The moment I heard that sound, the fear inside me crossed a line. Putting that feeling into words is impossible. All my courage shattered in an instant. My whole body was drenched in sweat and shaking violently. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to sit up straight. I didn't have the guts to stop and see what was on the roof. I tried to distract myself from the noise, but the atmosphere had become so terrifying that it was impossible to focus on anything else. The commotion on the roof was hammering directly into my brain. Then I thought I saw a faint, blurry shape in the darkness outside my driver's side window. For a second, it looked like two large eyes, and a strange face had materialized right next to the glass. I didn't even have the courage to look now, but I couldn't help it. With a trembling body and eyes wide with fear, I looked at the window. There was nothing there, just deep black darkness. But I could feel it. Someone was out there watching me. I could feel its presence on my skin. The hairs on my arms stood straight up. I felt like I was choking. And then, quietly, I started to pray. I tried to mutter the Lord's Prayer, but my lips wouldn't move. The terrifying noise on the roof still hadn't stopped. Then I said to myself, in my mind, no matter what happens, I am not stopping this vehicle until I'm home. I knew for a fact that stopping would mean my life was over. This evil thing was doing everything it could to make me stop. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the jumping and thumping on the roof stopped completely. An eerie silence fell over everything. But this silence gave me no comfort. Instead, the fear grew even worse. My mind was screaming that this silence was just the prelude to something even more horrible. And just as I'd feared, it happened. From inside the ambulance, from where the body was, I started to hear the sound of deep, heavy sobbing. This wasn't the crying of a normal man. The sound was so painful, so horrifying, that every hair on my body stood on end. My hands and feet went ice cold, and my blood felt like it was freezing solid. You know that feeling you get when you look down from a great height? That vertigo, where your limbs go numb. That was me. I was losing control. My hands were so sweaty it was hard to keep a grip on the steering wheel. The sound of crying from the back was slowly getting louder. At first, it was like someone was quietly whimpering. But within moments, those whimpers turned into a full-on, pain-racked scream. The sound was so sharp and piercing, I thought my eardrums would rupture. In a panic, I tried to cover my ears with both hands, then quickly grabbed the wheel again as the vehicle swerved. And that's when I heard, right in the middle of that scream, a deep, heavy voice. It felt like someone was speaking directly into my ear. "You ran over me. Do you really think you'll make it home alive tonight?" A low, guttural laugh. Hearing that, my mind went completely blank. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't believe my own ears. And then I thought, was that thing standing in the middle of the road really the corpse? The moment that thought clicked, every part of my body went cold. I was frozen solid with fear. I felt like today was my last day. That ghostly thing was going to kill me. Just thinking it, I started to feel smothered. That's when I saw the lights of the main road up ahead. I was so close, just a little further. but the fear inside me had such a grip that I felt like I'd never be able to cover that short distance. It felt like a tremendous weight had been placed on my ambulance. Even with the accelerator floored, the truck wasn't moving forward. In fact, its speed was slowly dropping. I understood. Some evil force was trying to stop me. After hearing that voice, I was almost lifeless. My brain had stopped functioning. I was just sitting there, holding the steering wheel like a machine, my foot jammed on the accelerator. My ambulance was fighting against some invisible power, inching forward. I thought I was going to die. But when I was about 15 minutes from the body's home, everything suddenly went quiet. No more crying, no more commotion. The whole atmosphere changed to one of absolute silence. It was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat clearly. This sudden silence felt even more frightening. I knew something was about to happen. Then, a thud sound, like something heavy had fallen. The sound came from inside the ambulance. My heart leapt into my throat. Had the body fallen off the stretcher? Trembling, I slowed down and peered through the small window into the back. What I saw made my blood run cold. The stretcher was empty. The body, wrapped in its white sheet, was now sitting upright on the long bench along the side. Like a living person was just sitting there. Its face was still covered, but even more terrifying was the state of the stretcher. It was completely bent and twisted, as if someone had grabbed it in a rage and snapped it in half. In that moment, my ability to think just shut down. The steering wheel kept slipping from my sweaty hands. Now I was just praying, over and over. The fear was so overwhelming that tears were streaming down my face. I was just begging God to let me deliver this body and get out of this alive. I forced myself to look away. And finally, shaking, half unconscious, I reached the address. An old, worn-down house stood in front of me. Darkness and silence everywhere. No one was outside. I stopped the ambulance, pulled out my phone, and called the number the hospital had given me. A young man answered on the first ring. "Hello?" Just from his voice, I could tell he was grieving. I'm the ambulance driver," I stammered. "I'm outside your house." "Oh, you're here," he said. "We'll be right out." "Please hurry," I said, my voice cracking. "Just come out quickly." I hung up. I couldn't stay in that ambulance for another second. I opened the door and practically fell out. I walked about 10 or 12 paces away and stood there, shaking. Just being near that vehicle was unbearable. I stared at the house, praying someone would come out quickly. And then, I don't know why, my attention was dragged back to the ambulance, and when I looked, my heart stopped. Where I had been sitting just moments before, someone else was now in the driver's seat. It was like a shadow, a pitch-black silhouette. It had no face, just a black shape, and it was sitting there, staring straight ahead, completely motionless. I was only 10 paces away, but fear was suffocating me. I tried to scream, but my voice got stuck in my throat. And then, someone touched my shoulder. With that touch, all my fear erupted in a single sharp cry. "Oh God!" I yelled, spinning around. A young man was standing behind me. It was probably the same guy I'd just called. He looked utterly shocked, his face a mask of confusion and concern. An older man came out of the house behind him. "Are you okay?" the young man asked. "Why did you scream like that?" I fumbled for words, my voice trembling. You just scared me, that's all," I managed to say. I wasn't expecting it." Before I could say more, my eyes flicked back to the ambulance. The driver's seat was completely empty now. The black shadow, the figure, it was gone. I didn't say another word to them. I knew if I told them they'd think I was insane. I quickly helped the man and the boy take the body down, but when I opened the rear doors of the ambulance, I was stunned one last time. The body wasn't on the twisted stretcher. It was lying on a perfectly clean, straight stretcher, exactly as it had been when we left the hospital. And right then, I was so glad I hadn't said anything. They really would have thought I was crazy. I took the payment, and without wasting a single moment, I got out of there. The only difference was, this time, I took the long way home, the familiar route. I didn't go back down that cursed shortcut. But for the entire drive back, my body wouldn't stop shaking. That dead, angry face kept flashing in front of my eyes. That figure in the white shroud standing in the road, and that black shadow sitting in my seat. For months after that night, I couldn't bring myself to drive an ambulance, but eventually I had to make a living, so I returned to the job. But after that, I never ever drove an ambulance alone at night again, especially not on remote back roads. And that, everyone, was Jake's story. What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this story, please give this video a like, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. If you can, share this story with your friends, or anyone who enjoys a good, scary tale. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next episode with another terrifying story. Until then, good night, and thank you for listening.